Hey, guys, it's Chris. We're going to get started here. It's about 8:30. So welcome, hello, and Happy New Year to all you guys. Welcome to 2021 in the season. I hope everyone's doing well out there. Everyone's as safe as possible. And I don't know about you guys, but for me it's really good to have the chance to talk baseball and kind of get prepared for things. One of the main purposes of this phone call, aside from the normal things we talk about each year, is to try to answer some questions about things as it relates to the baseball season. Unfortunately, and you'll see as we get further into the phone call, there's a lot of answers we just don't have right now. So, we're going to do our best to give as much information to you guys as we can in preparation of the season here. But, just be mindful of the fact that there's just a lot of things we don't know about. So, with that being said, I'm going to turn over to Alex, and he's going to kick us off with some housekeeping stuff.
I want to start off by saying Happy New Year. I want to thank everybody who reached out, text, Facebook message, whatever it was, while I was, I don't know how many of you know, but I had a bad case of COVID here for a while, so I do appreciate that. It's amazing how many of you guys reached out, and I really appreciate it. It was one of the worst things I've ever experienced, and I'm so happy it's behind me, and now we're talking about different things, which is happy to be talking about baseball. Before we roll into this, I just want to let anybody who's on the call know this is a United Collegiate Umpires call for umpires that are going to be working in the Northeast or looking for assignments in the Northeast. So I know we have on a lot of different things running through Facebook now between United Travel and Russ Matt and stuff like that. So we will not touch on anything related to United Travel or Russ Matt on this call. So if certainly anyone's welcome to stay on the call, but I just wanted to make that announcement up front in case anyone was confused. So kind of just rolling into it here and just really housekeeping. Just in terms of communication, and I kind of say this every year, and I think every year it gets through to a few more people, but, we would like to see as much communication via email as possible, and that stuff will go to Chris and I, whether it be game turnbacks, whatever it may be, anything that doesn't have, like we need to know about it immediately. Certainly just email Chris and I, and just keep in mind, in almost every instance, whatever it may pertain to, just copy Chris and I, and whomever gets to it first, we'll get back to you. And if it pertains to one of us more than the other, obviously, Chris and I during the season probably talk 10 times a day. So, just keep in mind that there's a lot of stuff running through our Arbiter account. So try to not email people with the addresses John, Mac UCU assigner, or assigner@umpires.org, because those emails don't go anywhere. If you do need to call, please leave a message. Don't text us. Don't Facebook message us. Don't DM us through Instagram. Don't send smoke screen. Don't send texts that say, when can we talk? If you need to talk to us, please call us. Just leave us a message. Let us know exactly what you need. I understand there's certain things that come up that, you don't necessarily want to leave a message about, but don't just say, call me back. Say, hey, this is so-and-so. I had I have a big personal matter that came up. I really need to talk to you about it. Things like that. Just so we know what we're getting into, and then also so that when there is a situation where you have information that you need, we can be prepared and maybe just email you back or get in touch with you and get you the information you need. So, and last thing on the housekeeping list, we have a new member conference call tomorrow night. It will be the same time, 8:30 Eastern, same exact dial-in. All those people who were accepted to the group this year through tryouts and things like that and evaluations all got a notification on that. That tomorrow is for those new members. Certainly anybody that maybe got in the last year or 2 years that feels like something like that would help them. Basically, during that call, we'll go into some different things more in depth that maybe we don't on this call, such as uniforms, using Arbiter, all those kind of things when you haven't been in the group for an extended period of time, that you might like to have an opportunity to to talk about. So that's what tomorrow will be about. So let me just talk a little bit about availability, scheduling, and our process and timeline for that. Obviously, as most of you know, we typically are on a October 31st Division I conference schedules released, and in December 31st we're typically done. And unfortunately, with the way schedules are going to be rolled off with COVID, with everything going on with budgets and things like that, Chris and I spoke, and obviously John Porter was involved in that discussion as well. And we just felt like, given the schedules that we received, the timing, and then also the amount of changes that we're anticipating, that we just decided not to roll out schedules, because we felt we would just be dealing with change after change after change. And we certainly still anticipate that we're going to have that change after change situation, but we are going to wait until, we get to a spot where we have confirmed schedules from our schools and can roll some stuff out. So that being said, I do anticipate that we will certainly be starting that process soon. So in the Arbiter, if you do have any block dates, please put them in there. That'll be very important. And it'll be very important during the course of the season, just to keep your availability. It's open all the time. Just update it for us. It really is frustrating when you get something the night before and 10 people look like they're open and really only 2 out of the 10 have updated. So please take care of that for us so that we can make sure that our assignments are getting filled in a timely manner, and then also with the quality that kind of we expect out there. I will tell you that I do anticipate, and Chris anticipates, our game counts being down some. So whether that means teams are starting a little bit later or they're playing a few less midweek games. I've seen and heard about some of the D3 conferences maybe playing more of a conference-only schedule. But I will say that certainly anticipating things being down a bit. Chris, you back with us, bud? I think I see your name here now.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you when I tried to. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. You got me?
Okay. Yeah, I got you. So if you want to go back to the second to NCAA requirements and go from there, I'll pick up my stuff after that.
Okay. Sorry, guys, not sure what happened there. I can assure you what I said was really important, but let's try again. Let's talk about the NCAA requirements, guys. And for guys that have been around for a while, there's really no difference other than the fact you guys will notice that the dates have been moved up by a couple of weeks. And that's a decision that was made back in 2019. So as far as the registration with the Arbiter and the NCAA goes, unless you guys are in contention or hopeful of going to a Division I regional, pay for the lowest registration fee that's available. So basically you can sign up for the Division III. Now you'll notice there has been a discount, obviously, from the NCAA from last year for not playing the season. But if you guys are unsure of what to sign up for, just sign up for the Division III fee and that rate. The online clinic is open now, guys. It's been open, I think, for a couple of weeks here. It's about a 3-hour or so video with some questions. So once again, that's one of our requirements for the season, so make sure we have that taken care of. The test will open up on the 8th, and it's good for 2 weeks until the 22nd. And as usual, we just have to make sure we pass with an 85. You get 2 tries, but you can log in and out as many times as you want. And, this wasn't really on my agenda to talk about, but, now that I think about it, in the past, obviously, we've wanted you guys to get together and work together on this. It might be a little bit more challenging this year. But, let's just try to think of some creative ways to get together and work on this together as a team and make sure that we hit that date of the deadline of the 22nd. For any umpires hoping to or to be eligible for Division I or Division III postseason, you have to submit to your background check by the 22nd, so that's the same date that the test is due. So make sure that we at least submit to the background check, and then there'll be the next step once that background check, you'll receive another email after that. We say this in the past, guys, let's not lose our schedule for not fulfilling our requirements. Especially having a season lost here. I think it's even more important that we get in the book, we take the test, we watch that video, the online clinic, and really doing everything we can to prepare for the season. But just take care of the things that we can take care of and make sure that we hit those dates. Many of you guys will remember from last year, and actually affected me as well. You'll see on the arbiter oftentimes there'll be a green check mark when you get the online clinic taken care of, when you take your test, the background check. Oftentimes it takes a little bit of while for the green check mark to come up. And we found last year there were guys that didn't get that check mark. So do us a favor, take a screenshot when you get that notification that you've taken the online clinic and taken and passed the test, just for some odd reason that you don't get that confirmation or the check mark. That way, if we have to go through the NCAA and prove to them that you guys did fulfill your responsibilities, it's much easier if we have that information. So take that screenshot, save it. If you want to send it to us, and you don't necessarily have to do that, but certainly take a screenshot so you have proof of that. All right?
And guys, hold on to that. Chris and I don't need a copy of your sheet or you're passing the test or you're doing the clinic. We don't need any of that. We as supervisors get a copy of the information, and we want you to have the screenshot as a backup. You don't need to send it to us. That if we got 400 of those, our email boxes would look crazy. So just hang on to that screenshot and that email.
Very true. Next thing I want to talk about, guys, is kind of in relationship to the test, obviously. Now more than ever, especially after not working last year, we really need to get into the rule book. Obviously, with the rule changes this year, and for you guys that have seen the videos and taken a look at some of that stuff, not a whole lot of big ones, but honestly, we should be reviewing some of the changes that came in last year, like the 20-second clock and stuff like that. So, I know that we all spend hours every season and in season with our noses in the rule book. I know we all do that already, but let's just make sure that we spend a little extra time this year and just sharpen up on things that, maybe we haven't really thought about for a year and a half. So just make sure you put the extra time in this year, because let's face it, we have to know the rules. We just need that commitment to knowing them inside and out, the rule changes, and basically it's business as usual, guys. Just don't overlook the importance and significance of knowing the rules. All right, next thing I want to talk about, and we talk about pretty much every year, is handling situations. And I won't get into the whole, warning process. We've talked at length about it, and certainly we're going to do these calls throughout the season and talk about it more. But just, remember what we've talked about in the past, issuing warnings when necessary, following that protocol. Nothing's changed. When we have ejections, it's just follow what we've done in the past. When we have an ejection, make sure that we called in within an hour at the end of the game. If you have a doubleheader and you have a spare couple seconds to go ahead and call one of us or text us to let us know you had an ejection, not a bad idea. But certainly, once a game is ended, we want to receive some phone calls. And for Division I games and Region III junior college, you're obviously going to call me. All Division III games and Region 19 plus the Penn State schools call Alex. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't reach out to either one of us, or if one doesn't pick up, certainly call the other. But those phone calls are very, very important, because oftentimes, especially when there's, some pretty involved ejections, getting some preliminary information on that just gives us a better chance to attack those and have answers for people a little bit sooner than normal. So make sure we follow through with those phone calls. As far as the reports go, by 9 a.m. it's the latest the next day. But I know you guys have all heard me in the past to make sure that you honestly, after the game, I'm not saying not to go out to dinner or do whatever you're going to do, get home, spend time with the family, but really, for me personally, I think that you should take the time and try to get those reports done that evening. For Division I and Division III, those forms are in the Arbiter. And certainly if you have any questions where to find it or how to work on those, Alex and I are always around to help you navigate through that. For junior college and the Penn State schools, just a simple email form, what happened. And once again, just make sure that you get them filled out. You can't wait till the next day. Because as you can imagine, phone calls are going to be generated from schools, from conferences and administrators. We really want to try to stay ahead of it. So pretty much what we've done in the past, but just kind of a refresher on how we want to handle those situations. All right, Alex?
So just in general with conference updates here, we'll kind of run through from the lower end to the top. I'll start with D3 and JUCO and just where we are with everything. For D3 and JUCO, I don't see any reductions in fees for this year. We probably may have a couple slight increases in two of the conferences, but definitely holding steady on where we are at for JUCO and D3. And with what's going on across the country, I'm pretty happy with that from that standpoint. We have reductions kind of across the board in a lot of different places across the country at lower levels. So pretty happy to have those holding true and maybe some slight increases. We'll really have the same assignment footprint for JUCO and D3 in 2021, really the same schools. I will tell you that for you guys in upstate New York, Cobleskill and Canton and SUNY Poly and Cazenovia have moved over to the North Atlantic Conference, and those four schools will make up the Western division of that conference. And we will assign in 2021 the Western division, and then in 2022 we will assign the Western and the Eastern divisions of that conference. So the Eastern division is four schools in Maine and a school in northern Vermont. So we will have all of those schools in 2022. For those of you guys who have been to or kind of in the running for Division III regionals, spoke with Don Umland over the weekend. The NCAA has changed that format a bit for this year due to some budgetary considerations. There will not be super regionals this year, and they are down to about 45 teams for Division III postseason this year. So, and we're probably looking at an umpire drop from somewhere in the 80 range. I believe it was 80 in 2019 to about 45. So here's what I want to say. In general, across the board, and as it relates to this, I want everyone to think of 2021 as a year where we are going to get out on a baseball field, hopefully. We are going to have some sort of a crazy abbreviated season, and we're going to be happy to be out there. And this is not the year to look at your schedule and say, I got one more D1 weekend, or I got three less, or I got four more, or I went to postseason, or I didn't go to postseason. This is the year to appreciate that we're out there, have fun, and get ready for hopefully what looks like a very normal spring of 2022. And if we all kind of take that attitude, I think it'll help us as an organization. It'll help people individually. If you take the attitude of looking at how your 2021 schedule is versus what 2020 was supposed to be or what 2019 was, I guarantee you're going to be disappointed. So it's just less games, less opportunities. Be happy we're out there, move forward, do the best we can, get ready for spring 2022. Chris?
Yeah, I want to expand on that just a little bit as it relates to Division I guys. Some of the fees, which I'm going to touch on here in a second, they're not going to be ideal. Obviously with what's going on in the world, what's going on with some of these universities, athletic programs, it's tight. So, I just want you guys to know, and Alex as well, we want you guys to know that we're going to do everything, and we have done everything to try to keep fees where they are or as good as we can get them for this season. And certainly we're going to fight to make sure that going into next season, they're going to be back to where they should be. So you have that commitment for us. But just be mindful of the fact that, where we are in the world right now, and there had to be some changes. So with that being said, there's been a lot of rumors and misinformation out there, but I can tell you that in all 4 Division I conferences, we'll be using 3 umpires. There were some rumors out there that wasn't the case, but I can tell you, I have confirmation from our 4 conferences that they will be using 3 guys. We'll be playing conference tournaments. Not sure how many teams. And some of the conference tournament games may only use 3 umpires. So, once again, we don't have all those answers, those questions, but at this point, looks like we will be playing conference tournaments, and we'll have 3 umpires on the field, which is good because you could imagine going back to 2 umpires how that would work. So let me talk a little bit about each conference. The America East, same 2-day, 3-game format. NGIT has been added to the conference, so now we have an even amount of teams, a balanced schedule. At this point, they're looking at 10 weekends, with the first 2 weekends being crossover weekends and the last 8 divisional. So, once again, could be subject for change, but at least right now that's where they are game count-wise, so somewhere around 30. There has been a 15% reduction of fees, so that brings us down to $680 for the weekend, plus the same mileage stipend. It's incremental over 200 miles, which we're going to be entering into for 2020 anyways. Okay, so that's where we are with the America East. For the MAC, presently, we're at a 3-game weekend, Saturday, Sunday series. There's been rumors and talk about possibly going to 2 days and 4 games. The conference is going to meet, I think, later this week to talk about that, but presently we are at just a 3-game weekend, Saturday, Sunday, with the potential to go to 10 weekends, 4-game series, which would give you 40 conference games. There has also been a 15% reduction in fees for conference and non-conference in the MAC, which brings us, I think, down to $595. So that's where we are there. Some of you guys may have read and seen some information from the Ivy League. At this point, they're not starting any spring competition until the end of February. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we won't be playing in the spring. But once again, we don't have a definitive answer as to where we're going that. I can tell you if we play, our fees are frozen to the 2019 fees that we were going at with the mileage, IRS mileage. So that's not too bad for us. The NEC at this point, there was some talk about the possibility of a 4-game weekend. They're not going to do that. Nobody wants to go 4 games, so it'll be, at this point, 3 days, 3 games, and those fees are also frozen to the 2019 fee structure with the mileage. So that's where we are with that. I can tell you that there is talk of midweek games. Once again, we don't know how many or how often. I guess it'll be, some last-minute games added here or there, possibly, or not at all, as far as midweek games. But there's reason for optimism. Everyone is pretty positive in these 4 conferences. So, they do have plans. They talk twice a month trying to work these schedules out, and I've been in contact with them as well. So, that's where we are at this point, and certainly any additional information I get or any updates, we'll keep you guys up to speed with that. So that's where we are with Division I.
You want to just touch, Chris, on the kind of just regional, maybe a little bit more regional assigning to.
Yeah, and guys, it really comes down to the fee structure and travel money, and it's realizing once again it's not ideal. It's not where we want to be, but the way that I'm going to approach this is try to, at least with Division I, keep you guys more of a regional assigning model, closer to home when possible. So we've kind of broken down, what schools most guys are closer to. So kind of gone are the days where you have those long trips, with maybe some better paydays based on mileage and fees. Obviously we're kind of at a disadvantage when it comes to that now. So that's kind of the plan, to try to keep you guys closer to home for those reasons. And like Alex touched on before, you can't really look at what you worked last year or year prior, read into it too much. We're just trying to do our best here to schedule and put together a schedule that makes sense for everybody involved, and being mindful of where we are once again with fees and how it affects you guys and the travel. So, that's kind of what we're looking at, just being more of a regional model and keeping you guys a little bit closer to home when possible.
Yeah, and I think on that, I don't know where we're all going to fall out on, and Chris will touch on this a little bit, but just on procedures. So it is possible that we get some notification that umpires traveling together might not be a good idea. So that also factors into that decision, because we don't necessarily, I know part of look, I did it for years. You travel with people, it's fun. You drive a couple hundred miles and, you start talking, and by the time you're done talking, a couple hundred miles is over. Well, we may be, in some conferences at least, in a situation where guys are going to have to travel by themselves, because they're obviously worried that if somebody pops positive that, that if they're traveling together, now we got a contact issue. So just that's another piece of the regional assigning. If people are only traveling 20, 30 miles from their home, it's a lot easier to travel alone, and you're also in a spot where, it's just more conducive to kind of where we're at with numbers. So that's kind of the thought process there. Just continuing on, just very briefly, kind of scheduling and timelines and availability. I'll get into more of this with the guys who haven't experienced it tomorrow evening. But, just in terms of what we do for fees and assigning fees and all those type of things, everything is the same as it has always been. The one thing I want to touch on that seems to always be a little bit confusing is how we set up our rotations. So in a Division I conference weekend, that it's very simple. We're basically in order unless you hear something different from Chris. So whoever's listed first is our first plate guy, and that guy may or may not be the crew chief based on, whether they're bolded or not. So that's a conference weekend. Everything else we do is really an agreement amongst the people on the crew, whether it be 2 men or 3 men. And heard a lot of different things about, like, the crew chief deciding, about the guy who's first is the plate guy, and all these different things. Like, it literally is a agreement among the umpires as to what we're doing. And I think Chris and I have an expectation that we can all act as adults, figure out what makes sense, and go from there. And I will say this, when I was working D1 weekends, if I was working a series, if I was working Friday, I wanted to work Tuesday on the plate. If I was working Saturday or Sunday, I wanted to work Wednesday. We may not all be in that spot, but if you're going to be effective on the weekend, especially given we've had all this time off and, who knows how many games are going to be, like, if you're going to work a plate on the weekend, you should try to work a plate during the week. Whether maybe sometimes it's not a D1 plate. I mean, honestly, sometimes the D3 plates and the JUCO plates are just as good. So, I don't want you working the plate every day, every week, but get some of that stuff ironed out and try to figure it out. But also remember, there's in the non-conference, in the D3 and the JUCO, just you're not in a spot where the first guy's not the plate guy, the crew chief doesn't get to decide. Like, it's a situation where you guys got to figure it out in the best, the best way that you can. So I just want to give and I've got Keith on the call here too, just some information here on uniforms. I will tell you guys that the uniform information is on the United website. As you guys know, we try to keep it absolutely as simple as possible from a uniform standpoint. We do not embroider any of our shirts or jackets. We do not embroider pants. We do not embroider anything really other than our hats. And if you're working a Division I conference weekend in one of the 4 conferences, you will wear that conference hat. For really any other assignment, you will wear a United hat. And the only caveat to that is if you do work at Hofstra or Northeastern, which comes out of kind of a mesh of discussion between John and Chris, at those two places, we should be wearing CAA conference hats. So that's kind of what you should be wearing. And I've got Keith, you with me here, bud?
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. So I'll let Keith just talk a little bit about – yeah, I can hear you good. I'll let Keith talk a little bit about his process, and for those of you that need some stuff. And Keith will also be with us tomorrow to talk more to some of the umpires who may have nothing at this point that's related to the group. So this will be a little bit more about for those that kind of need to fill in their stuff or get a hat here or there. And Keith will talk a little bit more specifically about, someone who needs kind of a newer package tomorrow.
Hi, guys. I guess Alex kind of covered the basis. Nothing really changed as far as on-field uniforms go. What we'd like, and we always try to stress, is if, to get your bag out, kind of look in there, what you have, and, especially with hats, if you could get your hat orders in early. We do attempt to keep everything in stock in all the D1 conferences, as well as the United hat itself, along with in a 4, 6, and 8 stitch. But obviously easier for all if you put your orders in early, and we're not trying to get it to you a day before a game somehow. With that being said, and I'm sure everybody has experienced it, anybody in business anyhow, shipping right now is absolutely ridiculous. Things that take 2 days sometimes take 6 days, and that has everything to do with the pandemic, and nothing, it's really out of all our control. So being prompt and being ahead of the game is kind of the key of what we're doing, of what we need to do. If you have any questions, like Alex said, you can go to our website, which is on the United website, a tab under the umpire resources, and it's www.stripesandstrikes.com, and being spelled out, and just go under umpires and go to United Collegiate Umpires, and everything is there from your on-field stuff. We do carry some off-field stuff for you guys, quarter zips. We're going to be adding some items to that relatively soon, as that it's been a couple years where we haven't really brought out anything new, but it's not really my intention, and I know it's not United's intention to really have anybody feel compelled or in any way to go and buy anything. That's why they do such a good job as far as keeping our uniform as generic as it is, so you're not buying more than you make, I should say, in your paychecks. One other thing I wanted to touch on, and I just think these conference calls are great, that Alex and Marsh came up with a couple years ago when this all started, and without sounding too corny, that United is a kind of like a family type thing. And why I'm saying that, in last year, United and my company, we did a fundraiser for United Cancer, the United Cancer Society, and I believe that has touched probably all of us in some way. And I just thought it was a great thing that Alex and Marsh came up with, and we ran with it, and we made some money for the organization, being the United Cancer Society, and we look at continuing to do those type of things. So when you see those things out there and you can participate, please try to do so. Currently, we have an umpire, and I'm not sure how many know him or not, Dan Trimble, who has, unfortunately, he is fighting leukemia, and we're currently doing a fundraiser for Dan. Whenever something like this hits a family, it just becomes difficult all over the place, from finances to you name it. So on our website, you can also find under teams, there is a fundraising page, and whenever we try to do something like this, United does a great job of hammering it on, putting it out on their Facebook page. And right now we're doing a T-shirt for Dan where all the proceeds go to him. And they're doing one of his local organizations are also kicking in, and they're doing a cornhole tournament and a raffle. So if anyone can take a look, we'll try to put that out to you guys. But I just think it's a real neat thing that everybody's involved in, where we're always trying to give back and do the right thing. All right. Thanks, Alex, Marsh. And for the guys, once again, who are on tomorrow, I'll be on again to talk about more specifics. If you guys have any questions, it's sales@stripesandstrikes.com. Once again, email is the best form, and we can attack it that way. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks
Keith.
Guys, Keith does a great job for us. It's a tireless job. It's a job at times, especially, umpires get stressed out when they're waiting on uniforms and expecting things to happen sometimes and receive things that, it's not humanly possible to get things out that soon. So Keith has always done a great job of working really hard for you guys to get you your uniforms and stuff as quickly as he can. And to his point, let's not wait too long here, because I'm sure a lot of us have experienced, myself included here with the holidays, how long it's taken for things to get to us. So let's be proactive. Let's not wait till the last minute and then put yourself in a position where you're days or hours away from needing a hat or a shirt. So, let's get ahead of that too. I want to talk a little bit about the COVID protocols, and I'm sure a lot of you guys want some answers. Maybe some of you guys are on this phone call for those answers, and unfortunately, there just aren't many there. And it's not it's not that we don't want to give you information or tell you, but we just don't have the answers. The best we can tell you at this point is we will have a mandatory conference call at some point to update you guys on what the protocols are going to be. I can tell you Alex has been in meetings or on the phone. I have been through emails with the conferences. These conferences are talking all of the time. They're trying to figure out what's going on with these winter sports to learn from them, try to use some of their information to help them in the spring. I know there's 2 or 3 of my conferences that are talking this week over the next couple of weeks, trying to formulate some plans. So until we have something concrete, there just isn't a whole lot to tell you. It's just way too early to lock into anything at this point. One thing I can tell you, at least the America East has confirmed with me that they want us to have masks on the field, but the players and coaches, they'll be wearing them as well. So, I would be prepared to have masks on at some point, and, to what degree and how often, we just don't know yet. But, put it in the back of your head that there's probably a pretty good chance you guys are going to have those on, okay? Outside of that, once we have them and once we have some of our questions answered, which we have a lot for our conferences, then we'll start giving you guys what we have. One thing I do want to touch on, and especially after not working games last year, and it kind of ties into getting back in the rule book and getting prepared for the season and getting in shape and all those fun things, we know how hard you guys work for cage work. we're certainly not going to put stuff out there or tell you where to go, when to go. That's really up to you guys, what you guys are comfortable with, what the schools are comfortable with. That's really a decision that you guys have to make. I know locally in my part of New York, there's, a facility that has some indoor training and indoor games going on that our local guys could use. I would guess that in other parts of the Northeast, there's probably some of those situations, or maybe there's a school that may welcome you guys to come in and work and see some pitches. We've always asked you guys to do it. I'm sure a lot of you guys really want to do it after not working a whole lot last year, but, it's not something that we're going to tell you or get involved with. You really have to make those decisions on your own and do whatever you can to prepare yourself for those games. That's really the best answer we have in regards to the cage work. Danny, you there?
All right. Let me first extend my thanks to Alex and Chris. They do a really nice job of putting together the agenda for these conference calls and finding a way to uniformly disseminate as much information as we possibly can. In addition, I also want to thank all of you guys for joining us. And as I know we want to get to some questions, I will be brief. I just want to mention the social media platforms and how video impacts what we are trying to do as an organization. Facebook is truly the most up-to-date in terms of real-time information that we do disseminate during the season and off-season. One of the things we have implemented is the blast email from Jim Clayton, but oftentimes long before that email gets out, the information is already on our Facebook platform. So just to reiterate, we would like to increase our social media presence as much as possible, whether it's following us, liking us. I think what we have found is what really helps is if we can engage, whether it's questions, comments, whatever it might be. We would just encourage all of you to follow our platforms. One brief thing about YouTube. While we don't emphasize it very much, one of the things Chris just touched on was how we have not been on the field for extended periods of time. There is a ton of our original training content that all of you can find on our YouTube channel. That's at United Umpires. United Umpires is all consistent throughout all the platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So I would just encourage all of you to take a look at the YouTube channel and look at a few videos here and there. If nothing else, it gets us back into thinking about baseball, thinking about mechanics. One last thing there. One of the consequences of COVID is that we did not have our typical training clinic schedule in the off season. So as a result, a lot of our content is not nearly where it has been in the past. So what I would just ask and reiterate like I do every year at this time, if you have a play on the field, whether it's rules, whether it's mechanics, anything that you think would benefit the collective group, just bring it to my attention. The best way to do that is to shoot me an email at dmiller@umpires.org. That's all I have, and once again, thanks, guys, for joining us tonight.
All right, everybody. I apologize for that terrible noise. I have no idea where it came from, but the person probably had their phone muted, and I unmuted everybody, getting ready for questions here, and I screwed it up. So I apologize. But this is what I will kind of say at this point. We will open this up for questions for Chris, for me, for Keith, if you have something, for Danny. But this is what I ask. Think about your question. If it's a question that pertains just to you, send an email to the person that needs to get it, whether it be Chris or me or Keith or Danny. If it's something that you think we're all going to kind of benefit from getting an answer, that's something we might have missed, certainly kind of feel free to ask away and
just understand that there might be some I don't knows at this point if it's about COVID or anything like that. So at this point, I'll kind of open it up, and we'll go from there.
Hey, Alex?
Yep.
Or Chris, you gave us the fees for the America East and the MAC. Can you recall what the 2019 fees were for the Ivy and the NEC?
$213, Alex, I believe.
Yeah, I can't. The problem is, everything is from 2020 is canceled, so they all zero on me. But I kind of glossed over this a little bit. But I will send out an email when the conference schedules are done with that information to the individual conferences. So if you have a game in the Ivy, whether it be conference or non-conference, you'll get an email. It'll tell you what the formula is, and you have the ability to make sure that it's right in Arbiter, and that'll be across all 4 D1s, and then and then probably for JUCO and D3, I'll do one email, and that way you can check Chris and I's math and Arbiter's math, because God knows all kinds of crazy stuff happens in there, and obviously want to make sure that everything is correct. So we'll send out an email after the assignments have been posted, and then you all will have kind of that opportunity to check and recheck and make sure. And let's do that a few days before a game is to occur. When I get that email the day of or worse yet the day after, it's tough to then go kind of chase down a athletic secretary to make that change. So if you see anything when I do send out that email, please let us know.
Alex, I have the Ivy right in front of me. I just opened up an email, and I apologize for not giving you guys that fee. Doubleheader will be $360 plus the single game fee of $223 plus IRS mileage. Okay, that's the Ivy. And as far as the NEC, I'm about 95% sure we're at $213 per game. Plus the mileage stipend. We can confirm that, but I'm about 95% sure, if not more, it's $213 for the NEC. All right.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Chris.
Sure, no problem.
Hey, Chris, Tom Conway, I've got a COVID question for you, if you can try it.
Sure.
So NCAA's published their guidelines around masking and testing and stuff, and basically they're suggesting that base umpires should wear a mask, home plate umpires should wear a mask, and then home plate umpires should get tested, PCR test or antibody test right before the game. But they're leaving it up to the individual conferences to actually implement those policies. Basically, from what you've heard, are there conflicting policies, and will UCU come out with its own set of policies or guidelines around this?
Well, I can say that the NCAA has not given a whole lot of information, and the answer is basically the conferences will be making their decisions. So as far as conflicting information, from what we're kind of seeing and hearing, conferences will be making those final decisions. As far as our decisions and our thoughts on this, believe me, the three of us, Danny, Alex, and I, have talked about this. We have a number of questions that we're going to send to these conferences and some concerns of our own internally. So, yes, we will, as an organization, come up with some protocols of our own, I'm sure. But really, I think we're just kind of waiting to hear what the conferences come up with and how they answer some of our questions. So I don't know if that really answers it all that well for you, but that's kind of where we are at this point. Alex,
no, that's fair, and I appreciate that. Follow-up question, though, then, is if testing is required, who would bear the cost of the testing? Would that be on each individual umpire or the conference? And you might not know that yet.
I don't know. I could not imagine any time where you guys would have to pay for that. That would be on somebody else, I'm sure. But, okay. No definitive answer.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, we don't have a definitive answer on testing, I was made aware that the Division I baseball committee, who kind of filters down to all the divisions, were having a meeting to develop some protocols. It does sound like, as Chris said, that a lot of this stuff is going to be passed back, onto the conferences. I would also say that just to the point of kind of conflicting, I don't know that I would use that word, but I would anticipate that across our levels, the minimum standard set forth by a conference could vary, just depending on what conferences decide. And, at the end of the day, while we're making the assignments, we certainly are not employing you guys. And, you do work for that conference or that school that day. So their minimum requirements will be what we go by, but certainly we will act as a conduit to get you guys that information on what is required at each individual school. It's going to be a challenging year. A lot of information, need a lot of help with paying attention to who you're working for, what conference you're working for, and what you're doing on that day, so that we can certainly be ahead of it. So we will do everything we can to keep you ahead of it and keep you guys safe. I mean, ultimately, we're so close to kind of being at a vaccine point here, and ultimately don't want to see anybody else get more sick than we already have sick in this country. So it's really important to me, given what I've been through too. So we'll do our best for you.
Alex, one other thing I want to add to that, and I can't speak specifically to any of the conferences. I think I touched on this a bit earlier, where I said that the conferences, the Division I conferences, are speaking every 2 weeks. That's every conference in the Northeast, including the ones that aren't assigned by our organization. So my guess would be is it's going to be pretty consistent in the protocols amongst all of the 4 Division I's, I would guess. Don't quote me on that. I get a sense that they're all trying to do roughly the same thing, and they're gathering and sharing information between all of the Division I conferences in the Northeast. So my gut is telling me it'll be somewhat consistent, but like I said, I don't know if that's even the answer, but hopefully we find some more out here in the next couple of weeks.
I had a question texted in here.
Okay.
Anticipating this person did not hear the beginning of this phone call, so I will read the question. And it says, will there be temperature testing for umpires? Will there be a liability waiver that umpires need to sign prior to working? I can't speak for sure on any of that, again, across the board. But every discussion that I've been involved with has certainly involved some sort of temperature check. I don't know how it's going to be done. I don't know if it's going to be across the board. But I would anticipate that we will have some sort of temperature check, and we also will have a situation where we are probably asking you to take your temperature before you leave for a site. And kind of the idea behind that is, if you do have a temperature, they don't want you necessarily to get on their campus before we figure out that you're at 101 or whatever the threshold is. So that certainly is something that I would anticipate. Again, nothing is definite, but that's kind of one thing that I would say will probably almost 100% be there. As far as the liability waiver, I don't have any information on that yet. Do I think it's in the realm of possibility? Absolutely. But I can't comment yes or no. So that's what I got on that. You got anything else on that, Chris, from stuff you've been hearing?
No, much the same. Yeah, I think that's a great point that Alex makes. I mean, where I live and with restaurants and a lot of things, being closed or open at limited capacities, there's places that take your temperature before you walk in. So being aware of what your own temperature is and If you have one, then I think maybe you contact somebody or let us know. But there'll be something, guys. To what degree, we're just not sure yet.
There'll be a process in place for if you're feeling sick, what you need to do, how you need to get in touch with Chris and I. But again, we didn't feel comfortable putting something like that together without having kind of some definite plans from the conferences. So obviously it's going to just be more in-depth in terms of what you have to do to monitor your health, what you have to do to monitor who you're around and things like that. But in terms of the exact specifics, that's certainly tough for us to provide right now.
Hey, Chris, it's John Jordan. How you doing? Happy New Year.
Good, John. Same to you, John.
Quick question. Is vaccination or antibodies from previously having COVID, is that information you or the conferences want?
Good question. Once again, it's one of those I really don't have an answer for. Certainly one that I can pass along. There's a list of questions that I have that we've come up with that, we're going to pass along to conferences. That might be one that goes to the list. And honestly, that might be one that the conferences have already talked about. Once again, until we get some information from them or some answers to some of our questions, I don't have much for you on that.
Yeah, the only thing that I've heard on that, John, the only thing I've heard on that is I wouldn't anticipate that those that have been vaccinated would have any different set of rules than maybe the guys that haven't, from the standpoint of they're not going to really keep track of, hey, Alex has been vaccinated, but Chris wasn't. And there's going to be procedures kind of across the board for umpires, for student athletes, for coaches, and obviously guys that have had the opportunity to be vaccinated already, or just they have had that opportunity. But I don't think it's going to change anything in terms of what's expected on a campus or anything like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Going once, going twice.
Guys, if there's someone on here that just, doesn't necessarily want to ask a question, or, you can reach us offline through email, the preferred choice of getting a hold of us, and certainly we can try to answer those questions if you feel more comfortable going through that process. Was there another question? Did I cut somebody off?
Hey, Alex, you mentioned the new man meeting tomorrow. Is that also at 8:30 p.m. Eastern?
Yes, it is 8:30.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We will get out as much information as we can on the next conference call as early as we can. I would anticipate that one will be focused pretty solely on COVID protocols. It will probably be done as a Zoom so that we can have a PowerPoint and show you some different things and maybe look at some different facilities and how that all of what we are going to have to do works over time. So certainly be on the lookout for that. And thanks for joining us tonight. Those of you we're going to talk to tomorrow, looking forward to it. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.